clipping paths are a great way to be able to knock out the background of an image. Let's open up our Pages panel and double-click on page 4 to navigate to this area. While we're here, let's go to the Layers panel. Make sure the Photos layer is selected because this is the layer we want to bring everything into. We can also lock down the background photos layer so that we don't accidentally click on the blue graphic that's here. Now let's go up to File and Place and locate the Pairs Photoshop document. We'll say Open. Then we're going to click once just beside this area to load it onto this page. I'm going to close out my layers so we can see what we're working with. Now this Photoshop document has a clipping path that's saved inside of it that allows you to select and mask off just this pair and isolate it from the background. In order to see it, let's go up to our Object drop-down menu, go down to Clipping Path and open the options for it. Inside of the Clipping Path window, you may have to move it around so you can see both your picture and it. Make sure Preview is turned on, and the type of path that we're going to use is a Photoshop path. With it selected, you can see how it automatically chooses this vector path that was saved in Photoshop. Now right now we can see two pairs, but you can have multiple paths saved inside of it. So if I wanted to just see the right or the left pair, I can choose between both of those. For now, I'll keep it at 2 pairs and we'll say OK. Now we can use our black arrow selection tool. Let's click on the image and hold down the Shift and Command key and scale both the pairs and the image down until it's about this size in your document. The actual size won't really matter, but that looks pretty good right there. Since the frame for this is still larger than the actual picture itself, let's Control-click or right-click on it, go to Fitting, and tell it to fit the frame to the content. This will automatically scale it down. I'm going to move this down towards the bottom of this little area, then hold down the Option or Alt key and click and drag up to make a copy of it. One more time, let's change up the clipping path for this. So go to Object, Clipping Path, and choose the Options. From here, let's choose the right pair. With it selected, we'll say OK. And one more time, we'll Control-click or right-click, go to Fitting, and tell it to fit the frame to its content so that it frames out for there. Now with our black arrow selection tool, we'll scale this down about 80%. Click and hold and drag down until it's a little bit smaller. And let's rotate this -25 degrees, right about there. If it's off by a little bit, that's okay. We can now place this one on top and in front of your others. With this done, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, hold down my space bar, and then click and drag over till we go to this page, which is technically page 2. I'll scoot back over this way and focus on this bottom left-hand edge. Using the rectangle frame tool, this is the one that has the X between it, click and drag and draw a frame between pages 2 and 3. So right about here is where you want it to be. Now with it still selected, let's open the frame options. Go up to Object, down to Fitting, and choose Frame Fitting Options. This allows you to automatically fit whatever content you have to the frame before it's placed in there. We're going to change the fitting to fit the content proportionally, and we want it to be done in the top center portion from the align from. Everything else will be exactly the same and say OK. Now let's put some content inside of it. With this frame selected, let's go up to File and Place. Locate the Tulips Photoshop document. Here it is here. And we'll say Open. And you can see how this automatically fits inside of my frame, regardless what the size of the frame is, from top to bottom. Now we do want to scale up this image so that it fills out the frame a little bit better. With your selection tool, click on the inside of your graphic on the content grabber so that the picture itself is selected and not the frame. With the picture selected, go up to your control panel and locate the scaling options. Make sure that the link option is turned on, and we want to scale this up to be 70%. If you type in 70 in one, it'll automatically be placed in the other because both of these are going to be linked together. When it does this, you can see how it automatically scales up. I made one mistake, however. Let's go up to Edit and Undo. This time, when we scale it up, we want it to scale from the top center portion. Now with this done, let's change it to 70% here, and then click away. And now you can see how it scales up from the center outward rather than just the top edge. Now we still need to be able to see this graphic on the page. So clicking on the center grabber, you can use the arrow keys to nudge it up until you can just start to see the tulips. However, when I do that, I need to also adjust my frame. So I'm going to click away, then click not on the grabber but on the frame itself and pull up and adjust the height of it till we can see that. Now let's go back up to our Pages panel and choose page 1, which is this one right here. We'll put it nice and centered into our screen so that it fits well. That looks good. Also, if you did in the Layers panel, let's unlock the background photos layer so that we can select this background image. Clicking on this background image with the red flower and the colorful rocks, in the Links panel you can see that this is a Photoshop document. Now in Photoshop you can work in multiple different layers, and if you want to be able to turn on and off visibility for these layers using just InDesign, we can open up our layer options. Go down to Object, down to Object Layer Options, and it'll open up this dialog, and you can see all of the different layers that are a part of this particular object. If you have Preview turned on, we can turn off the cobblestones, which will get rid of that layer, and let's turn on the Sky with Clouds layer. Now we can say OK, and it completely changes out the look and feel of that image. I'll click off to the side to deselect it, and let's return back to that second page with the one in the middle. This is going to have the song's logo that's off the page. We want to have it linked and anchored inside of the text so that it always follows the text no matter where it's at. In order to do this, we'll go up to our type and let's show our hidden characters. This will make it easier to see exactly where things are going to be anchored to. I'm going to grab my type tool and let's do an insertion point right at the beginning of this second paragraph. Hit the return key just once, and then we can go back up to that new paragraph that we created, and let's hit a couple of spaces. 1, 2, 3. That'll be enough for what we're doing. To link the graphic, I'll zoom in just a bit, use your black arrow selection tool and carefully click on the logo at the bottom. Make sure you're clicking on the frame and not the content grabber. Notice that there's a red square at the top right-hand corner of this frame. If you hold the Shift key, when you click on the red square, you can drag it into where we've typed those 3 little dots. This will automatically move and position this frame into the text frame, and now it's an anchored inline graphic. You know it's anchored because there's literally a picture of the anchor now where that red square was. Now you can see that this graphic is also on top of the text that comes before it. Since this graphic is 1 inch tall, we need to have about 1 inch space before this paragraph so that there's plenty of room for it to stay inside this area. Here's how we're going to establish that. Grab your type tool, click once just to the right of the graphic. So now we've got our insertion point right here. With that done, let's open up our paragraph options by going up to our control panel and click on the little pilcrow. The space before is this option right here. And if we increase this number a couple of times, we want to go all the way up until it says 1 inch. There it is there. You can see as we did that, it increased the amount of space that's coming before this area that's above it, and now there's plenty of room for the graphic. So the best part about anchored graphics is that I can always go back into my text and I can move things around, and you can see how it automatically flows with the text. You don't have to hit more returns, just wanted to demo that for you. We can also have the image text wrap around things. Using your black arrow selection tool, click on the graphics frame for this one. Hold down Shift and Command, or Shift and Control if you're on a Windows, and let's scale it up until it goes into this second column, about this much. You can see that the text automatically flows, which is okay, but we want to have the text wrap around this area. So let's go up to Window and open up the Text Wrap dialog box. Now with the image still selected, choose the third option, which will wrap around the object's shape. You can see now it starts to clip out this area. Additionally, we can tell it to wrap around not just the entire side, but also the upper portion of it as well. So let's increase this amount to be 0.1875. That'll give it a little bit of outset. We want it to wrap to the right side, and we want the type to also be the same as the graphics frame. There it is there. Now if it's still overlapping with the top portion, that's okay. We're simply going to click on the content and drag it down just a bit, and we'll squash it so that that'll actually fit nicely. Lastly, with the object still selected, you'll notice that it's clipping around the actual frame. If we change the type to detect the edges, this will pick up on the shape of the edge of our document, and it'll give it a little bit more natural kind of curve that tends to wrap around the subject rather than the actual frame. The best part about this is because it's a vector outline, you can swap over to your white arrow direct selection tool, and at any time you can click on these lines and adjust them to move it exactly where you want things to be. It's not necessarily necessary for this exercise, but I did want to demo that you can edit these vector lines in order to place your text so that it flows naturally. Now let's play around with importing an Adobe Illustrator document. I want to see the whole spread, so let's go up to View and fit the spread to the window so that we can see all of this entire spread. With everything deselected, let's go up to File and Place, and let's choose the Garland Illustrator file, which is right here. We'll say Open, and we're going to click once on this left-hand side to place it inside of this area. Now with this done, we can click and drag, and let's move our graphic up and over. There we go, until the little curls start on this blue one and flow all the way along and end inside of this blue area. Now I've pasted this on the wrong layer, and that's okay. With the graphic still selected, I can go to Edit and cut it away. Then let's go to our Layers panel, choose the graphics layer, and you can go to Edit and Paste in Place. This will put it in exactly the same spot, just on a different layer. Now if you're also bringing in an Illustrator file, we can take advantage of their layers as well too. Scrolling over to this page, there's a blank frame that's just below this one. I'm going to click right here to select this frame. With it selected, let's go to File and Place, and let's locate the Flower Title Illustrator file. Here it is here. Make sure to show the import options for this one, and we'll say Open. This will allow us to choose which layer we want to work on. Do make sure that Show Preview is turned on so that we can see what layer and what area that we want to work on. In our case, we want to crop this to the bounding box layer. So with this one, there it is. And we want the transparent background to be turned on. If you click on the Layers panel, this will allow you to see what layer that we want to be able to see as well. Let's make sure that the English title is turned on for this. You can see how, just like in Photoshop, you can view the visibility for it. I know it's kind of hard to see with the preview, but when you turn it on or off, this gives you the ability to see what the preview does. Let's say OK to it. Notice that it is placed in here, and so we need to scale this down. So clicking on the content grabber on the center portion of this, we'll go up to our options up here. Make sure the center reference point is selected, and let's scale it down to be about 75% for both of these. Now it fits nicely in that area. Now if we wanted this flower to be in the center of the blue rectangle or blue square that's behind it, let's use our black arrow selection tool to click on the flower, hold down the Shift key, and also click on the box that's behind it. We want to move the flower up and to the right without moving the blue background and keeping that in place. In order to do this, locate the alignment panel. If you've got your control panel open, all of the alignment options can be found over here, or you can go to Window and down to Object and Layout and open the Align panel from here too. The main thing we want to do is to change the Align To be a key object. The key object is the one that's going to be most highlighted, and that's the one that we want to stay in place. So clicking once on the background square, we can now move everything over to be aligned horizontally and then vertically this way. With that done, let's close out our alignment panel. And also, just like in Photoshop, if we did want to change these layers back to be the Spanish version, we can always select the object, then go to Object, Object Layer Options, and here's where we can turn on Preview and show the Spanish title and turn off the English title. And we'll say OK to this, and it changes it up. Now, one of the new features in InDesign is subject-aware text wrapping. If we zoom out and go back to our first page in the middle, we want to have this text wrap around the edges of this sunflower. With our selection tool, the black arrow, let's carefully click on the picture of the sunflower. Once again, let's open up our text wrap options, and we want to turn on the third option, which wraps around the object's shape. The type of wrapping is we want to be able to select the subject. Now this is going to use AI to automatically recognize what the subject may be. Sometimes you have to play around with this, but we want to give it a little bit of outset. Notice how the text is kind of getting trapped inside of this area. So let's push it away roughly 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to increase this till it says 0.25. Now it flows much easier around everything else that's for this. Closing out my text wrap options, you can see that it works well for this text, but our address down here is getting cropped off. We can tell this to ignore the text wrap by selecting this text box. Let's go up to Object and open the Text Frame options. And then from here, we can tell it to ignore the text wrap. This will keep it on top of the image, but not affected by the image's wrapping itself. We'll say OK. Another great thing that you can do to add some striking visibility to your design is by placing a picture inside of text. Let's go back down to this second page and scroll over to this frame. I'm going to grab my Type tool and click and drag and simply create a large text frame in this area. Let's type the uppercase AM, and we can highlight it. We'll go to our control panels, and let's set the font to be Myriad Pro Bold, and the size of it is going to be 130 points. Now, if it's so large you can't see it, let's readjust the size of our frame until we can see the entire text. That looks good from there. Now, to place pictures inside of this text, we need to break it apart into its own vector shapes. So with the text frame still selected, go up to Type and choose Create Outlines. This is going to get rid of this as actual editable text and turn it into a vector graphic. If you swap over to your white arrow direct selection tool, you can actually see the individual vector points. Now let's place our graphic. We'll change the fill color to be none, so it kind of goes invisible. Then we can go to File and Place, and let's locate that blue hydrangea that wasn't blurred out. So this first one right here is what we want. We don't need to show the import option, so we'll uncheck it, and we'll say Open, and it's placed in here. Now these letters are acting as one big single text frame. You can actually click on the inside of it with your direct selection tool, your white arrow, and move around your image. Or if you wanted to scale it with the image selected, we can go up to our options and let's scale it up from the center point to be about 150 inches tall and wide. And that'll fill it out with just the blue hydrangea itself. Now we can use our black arrow selection tool and select the entire frame. I'm going to deselect it and then click on the frame. Now everything moves. I want to put it behind this little graphic. Once again, going to my layers panel, I can see I was working on the text layer. I need to move this to the graphics layer. So with it selected, let's go to Edit and Cut. Go to your graphics layer and go to Edit and Paste in Place. Now it's in the same spot. So to move it behind everything, we'll go to our Object, Arrange, and let's send it to the very back. Now it's behind here and we can place it so that it looks nice within that area. We'll deselect everything by going to Edit and Deselect All. The final thing that this exercise is going to show you is how to work with InDesign libraries. Libraries allow you to collect and save multiple graphics that you can reuse not only in one design, but over multiple designs. So think of it kind of as like a little mini bridge inside of just InDesign. And it can save more than just graphics. You can do text frames, you can do anything that you've made in InDesign. Now this exercise actually comes with a library, so we're going to go to File, down to Open. And to locate the library, it's inside of the Lesson 11 folder. And we want to find the INDL. Here it is here, Lesson 11 Elements INDL. We'll say Open. This library is going to have its own individual panel. And just like with the others, all of these are separate graphics that can be drug on and used at any time. Now right now you can see there's a variety of different kinds of graphics. Each one of these may be text, or it may be a set of flowers, or it may be a set of any other graphics. If you want to see these subsets, you can open up the option and do Show Subset. And then from here we can actually search our entire area. So let's say I wanted to find the one that just said flower to it. If I say OK, this will search through and only show me just the flowers that are inside of this element. From here, I can actually click on a graphic and drag it into my design and place it where I want it to go. We'll put it down here. With that done, we can close out our library. And the last thing we want to do is to maybe make our own library to use later on. I'm going to zoom out so I can see my entire area. And you can see we've got a lot of different graphics that are a part of this. To make a library, you can go up to File, down to New, and choose Library. Now if it asks you to save this to your Creative Cloud account, you can say no to this. We do need to save this inside of our Lesson 11 folder, and we're going to call this our CD Projects library and hit Save. This will open up a blank panel, and this will allow you to drag any objects you want to save into this panel. For example, if I choose the Ricky Records label, I can drag it into here and it's automatically saved as an vector graphic. If I click on the text, I can click and drag it in here and it's saved as a text file. Now if you need to rename something, you can double click on it and this will open up the item's information. We'll call this the Ricky Records address. You can give it a description, change what kind of type it is. I'm going to keep it the same and say OK to this. Any graphic that you want can be quickly saved inside of this particular graphics library. Then later on, if you're designing something else and want to use these objects, they can be dragged and used on future projects. Once this is done, you can close this out and it'll be saved along with what you have. From here, let's go to File and save what we're working on. You can upload this file to our class page for the exercise grade.